Hello there, Star Wars fans! The Star Wars theme has always been about balance, the dichotomy of light and dark, the ancient and the modern, the past and the future. However, it seems like things are starting to change lately, with the Acolyte in a way that upsets the balance. You may have observed several strange alterations to the canon, ranging from historical events to character histories. Some might blow these off, but I think these hold consequences for how they affect the story and the overall canon of the Star Wars timeline. You're not the only one who's been concerned about the direction things are going. We're going to examine the changes in more detail today, along with their consequences for the wider Star Wars universe. Look, I understand. Star Wars is a huge franchise. We're discussing anything from TV series to movies, comic books, and video games. I know that certain things are bound to change or develop over time. However, the Acolyte has made specific changes that go beyond little tweaks and actually have further consequences than portrayed. They have an impact on the plot, lore, and important characters. If you've been a fan of Star Wars for a long time, it's understandable that it's more than just entertainment. It's part of our past. Lots of us start to feel concerned as things begin to change in a way that seems ignorant to what came before. With that being said, the first change we'll discuss is about Ki-Adi-Mundi and what it means going forward. This will be a multi-video series diving into what changes to the canon were made, and my thoughts on it. But before we investigate further, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on alerts so you never miss when we talk about everyone's favorite galaxy far, far away. Now let's get into the details. Starting, you've got Ki-Adi-Mundi. If you've watched Star Wars for a long time, especially the prequels, you probably already know that Ki-Adi-Mundi is a respected Jedi Council member. The problem is that they've altered his age in the Acolyte. His age was actually established in the 1999 Star Wars Episode 1 Insider's Guide CD-ROM, as he was born in 93 BBY. This was supported by his stories and legends, and it matches nicely with the wider timeline of Jedi history. Given his existing background, his connections with the Jedi Order, and his role in the Clone Wars all made sense. Perhaps you're asking yourself, why does it matter how old he is? Well, even the little things add up in a setting like Star Wars. Age and experience are two factors that influence Jedi training, the political dynamics within the Jedi Council, and their links with important events. Although it might seem like a little change, changing Ki-Adi-Mundi's age throws off the carefully constructed character arc and the part that he played in the overall story. In Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Ki-Adi-Mundi speaks one of the most important lines.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
In my opinion, that sets up the premise for the whole prequel trilogy. With this line alone, we learn so much about the last 1,000 years in the galaxy, and how the Jedi will view the issue at hand when Qui-Gon Jinn informs the Council of a dark side Force user on Tatooine, trained in the Jedi arts.
He was trained in the Jedi arts.
My only conclusion can be that it was a Sith Lord.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
I do not believe the Sith could have returned without us knowing.
Hard to see the dark side is.
We will use all our resources to unravel this mystery. We will discover the identity.
The Sith are thought to be extinct, and it's implied that as long as Ki-Adi-Mundi has been alive, he was led to believe the same, with no traces of these dark side warriors since the end of the Sith Wars. The thought of them being a presence looming in the shadows all this time is hard for them to believe. The lack of belief and serious concern from the Jedi, due to their ignorance and comfortability doing the Republic's bidding, is the premise for why the Jedi fall in the prequels. I give credit where credit's due when discussing the Sith hiding for 1,000 years and engineering galactic conflicts behind the scenes. However, with the lack of knowledge or discovery by the Jedi for those 1,000 years, we learn why Ki-Adi's line is so crucial to what we know about the Jedi and the Sith during the Phantom Menace. The Acolyte takes place in roughly 132 BBY, 100 years before the Phantom Menace. In Episode 4, Ki-Adi-Mundi, a Jedi who shouldn't be born for at least another 39 years, is now already a full-fledged Jedi Master in the Jedi Order. So now, due to his involvement with Vernestra Rwoh and being on our small council, he is knowledgeable with a potential fallen Jedi that has killed many in the Jedi Order. A dark side Force user seemingly trained in the Jedi arts is on a killing spree, and very few in the galaxy fit that skill set. Just hold. Why was he chosen to be the one of the few Jedi to hear this? Why is he even here? Did they really need to pull at our member berries and hope this would make the story feel cool and connected? This just makes no sense. Ugh, what were they thinking? So it's not simply, oh, they changed his birthday, what's the big deal? It very much so that his line in The Phantom Menace now implies a whole new meaning. How can he forget about the dark side user 100 years prior? Sure, the Jedi in the prequels were ignorant and dismissive to the thought of the Sith returning, but a main concept of those movies was the corruption and evil can even be looming under your nose. Without you knowing, democracies can be turned into dictatorships quickly, and people will fall into dictatorships in the name of security and greed. But we were not led to believe that the Jedi are forgetful of something that happened within the last few centuries. The Jedi, yes blinded, are not stupid.
I may be an idiot, but I'm not stupid.
This now alone changes what we must think about the Jedi. It makes us think that the Jedi are honestly stupid and drunk on power, content with their own position in the galaxy, and not looking to seek out the dark and truly bring peace and balance to the galaxy.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
In my opinion, that goes against the lessons I stated before, and comes off as someone trying to paint the Jedi in a bad light, truly not understanding why they fell in the prequels. A spit in the face to the lessons that were taught in those movies. So why choose to have Ki-Adi-Mundi appear in this part of the timeline? Why have him be privy to this knowledge? Again, it doesn't make sense on any levels. If you still need another reason, another fact about Ki-Adi is that he is a Jedi that was granted an exception to marry and have children, but not just with one wife, but with multiple. The Surian species had serious issues with lack of procreation, so Ki-Adi was able to father multiple children with multiple wives to help his species live on. In 2003, Star Wars Ultimate Alien Anthology, we have it established that Surians live up to around 65 years old. Anything beyond that is unknown. Now, of course, being a skilled Force user might grant Ki-Adi some extra years, but not to well over 100. Of course, things between Legends and Canon can be altered, but if he and his species can live for so much longer, then why would he be granted this exception? Wouldn't they be able to have many children for many years? Why would there be a low birth rate crisis on Suria? Again, it doesn't make sense. So the big question is, why doesn't it make sense? I've thought about this over the last several years when it comes to specific details and stories within the Star Wars timeline. Star Wars isn't just a story to me. Star Wars is almost a lost history. And when I say that, I mean it can be understood and studied as if you were studying history of our own world. So when diving deeper into this galaxy, you want the stories to line up, the lessons to be timeless, and the details to all work together. One aspect of putting my voice out there to talk about Star Wars is that I can add to the conversation. And one part of the conversation is Lucasfilm's inability to deliver on their promise to maintain the Star Wars canon and make sure everything added falls into the timeline they're working with. What they've done here with Ki-Adi is just one aspect of what I'm going to call Lucasfilm's canon problem. Now again, I want to repeat, I know details and stories from Legends will be changed when adapted to current canon. It's bound to happen, and since Disney owns all that came before, they can do whatever they like with it at the end of the day. So one aspect of Lucasfilm's canon problem is the consequences of their changes, or downright laziness, mean for the pre-established canon stories. Adding Ki-Adi-Mundi to this part of the timeline doesn't change his age and the people around during this era, but it deeply changes our view of the Jedi, our view of the prequels, and what the meaning of the lessons George taught us should be. All this just to have a known character show up in your story is ridiculous. Pulling from Legends and adapting it into canon is not a foreign concept. Lucasfilm has fumbled the bag on this strategy before, but it can still be a viable option. I mean, just look at the MCU and how they pull inspiration from the comics and source material. It can be done well, but until you establish a new story in the canon and a reason why this is happening, or why a character is around, I'm still going to look at what came before as the foundation of what I expect to be going on. With Ki-Adi's role in the prequels and what we know from those movies, I'm going to assume what they assume. I'm going to assume what the legend stories made around that time tell us to be true. Since they were meant to play off of each other and help the overall universe make sense, I'm going to look at that for the who, what, when, where, and why, until I get a better reason for why Ki-Adi is around at this time in the timeline. It will not make sense to me just because the Acolyte says so. Sadly, I can believe that Leslie Headland and her team, when writing the show, were not aware what this addition of Ki-Adi-Mundi would mean to the overall story and canon of the prequels. But that is the problem. They didn't know, or maybe worse, they didn't care. Using him as nostalgia bait to be a cool Easter egg better serves their show today than it serves the franchise tomorrow, if that makes sense. Pretty selfish if you ask me. So that's why it just didn't make sense. It seems like it was never meant to. Well, that's all for today, from your favorite galaxy far, far away. So that's just my opinion. How do you feel? Do you find this edition of Ki-Adi-Mundi annoying, or do you support the change? Tell me in the comments below. I'd be interested in knowing what you think. Share the video and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Until next time, may the Force be with you always.